Bruchim haboim. Welcome everyone. We're about to begin Be'ezras Hashem to get on Daf Kuf Hey Amud Aleph, 3 lines from the top. The Gemara Daf Kuf explained that on the onset of Shabbos, if one started his Su'udah in the time that is permitted to start the Su'udah, even on Erev Shabbos, that means before Samuch LaMincha, then Rav Yehuda paskins that you must be mafsik when it comes to then the onset of Shabbos. And therefore, you have to take away the table and then make Birkat HaMazon and then make Kiddush. Rabbi Yossi is choylek, and Rabbi Yossi says, no, you can continue to eat until you finish your Su'udah, even in the middle of Friday night, and only afterwards are you required to then make Kiddush. On that, Shmuel says the halach not like Rabbi Yehuda, not like Rabbi Yossi, but rather you have to be pares mappa, and that's enough. Take a cloth, put it over the table where the food is on, and then make Kiddush, and then continue your Su'udah. The Gemara now brings the following Maisa. Rav Chananya bar Shlamya v'talmidi de Rav Haviyaspe b'Su'udasoi. They were sitting at the Su'udah together here on Erev Shabbos. The Koy Alai Rav Hamnuna Saba, and Rav Hamnuna Saba was being meshamish them. Omru lei, they said to him, Zil Chazi Mikadish Yoima. Go determine whether Shabbos has then come in. If so, Nafsik V'nikbei L'Shabta. If so, we will stop and we'll break for the Shabbos. In other words, we'll then take away the table, make Birkas HaMazon, and make Kiddush. In other words, we'll then be noheg like the sheet of Rabbi Yehuda. Omar Luhu. The Shamish, Rav Hamnuna Saba, said to them, Lo tzrichisu. You don't need to do that. Shabta kova nafsha. The Su'udah of Shabbos will be established on its own. In other words, the very fact that the onset of Shabbos comes, it already separates the meal, whereby all you have to do is be pares mape on the table, just as Shmuel had paskined. Doma Rav kishem she'ashabbos koivas l'maiser. Kach Shabbos koivas l'kiddush. Rav explained, just like when it comes to things of meiser, when it's during the week and it's only something that is achilas arai, it's mutter to eat, even if it has not been tithed. But on Shabbos, it becomes achilas keva. You're not allowed to eat it. So too, the strength of Shabbos is such that the Shabbos, in the onset of Shabbos, prohibits a person to eat, whereby, if he was eating before, immediately he is prohibited to eat. It breaks up the Su'udah. All he has to do now is be pares mappa on the table, make Kiddush, and continue his Su'udah. Sover Mina, the Talmidim thought that what he then explained means also ki heichi the kava l'kiddush kach kava lahavdala. The same way that Shabbos is koveya l'kiddush, that means on the onset of Shabbos you cannot go ahead and eat without making Kiddush first. So too, at the end of Shabbos, you cannot continue eating even on Motzei Shabbos, your Su'udah that started before Shabbos, if Shabbos then, Motzei Shabbos comes in without making Havdalah. Omar Luhu Rav Amram, Rav Amram explained to them, that's not so. Hochi Omar Rav, Rav said the following, L'kiddush koivas lo havdalah koivas. Kiddush, it establishes, whereby you cannot eat anything until you make Kiddush. Whereas on the Motzei Shabbos, you can continue your Su'udah, it's not kovas, to then require that you stop. That's in regards to then requiring you not to stop on the Motzei Shabbos. You can continue eating what you were eating before the Su'udah that you started on Shabbos afternoon. However, you cannot begin eating on Motzei Shabbos without making Havdalah first. And now the Gemara further qualifies this. Umifsik nami loy amaron ela b'achila. In regards to stopping, that we said that you are required to stop, that we said you're not required if it's achila, if you started your Su'udah before the end of Shabbos. Aval b'shtiya loy. But if it's merely drinking, that you're not allowed to do without going ahead and making Havdalah first. Unless, of course, the shtiya is in the Sud itself. But just when one drinks, one cannot drink until he has made Havdalah Motzei Shabbos. The Shtia Nami Layalmaran says the Gemara further qualification. And Shtia that we just said, that you must make Havdalah first before continuing to drink. Layalmaran Ele Bechamra Veshichra. That's talking about things like wine or like beer, which really things that you can make a Havdalah on. The Shulchan Aruch paskins things that are not water. Aval Maya Lesin, but if it's water, then you can go ahead and drink water even before making Havdalah. The Gemara points out, Upliga de Rav Huna. This argues on Rav Huna. The Rav Huna, Chazilahu Gavro, the Shasa Maya Koidim Havdalah. Rav Huna saw one drinking a non-water beverage before making Havdalah Motzei Shabbos. Or Marley, he said to him, Lo mistafi mar me askara. Are you not afraid of the onset of the askara disease, which is a terrible type of misa? This is actually the misa of the Talmidei Rabbi Akiva, the 24,000 students of Rabbi Akiva, that the Gemara tells died from askara. It's a disease and illness that begins from the intestines and goes all the way up into the throat, causing a person to choke ultimately. The Tana Mishmei de Rabbi Akiva. It was taught in the name Rabbi Akiva. Kol hatom klum koidem sheyavdil misoso ba'askara. Anybody who tastes anything, which implies even a beverage, before making Havdalah, his misa is askara. The Gemara says, Rabbanon debei Rav Ashi lo kapti amaya. They went like the opinion of the Rabbanon of the Beis HaMedrash of Ashi, who said when it comes to water, that's not included in what Rabbi Akiva was talking about, that one would get askara, that you can, yes, drink before Havdalah. Gemara asked the following, Boy minei Ravina me Rav Nachum bar Yitzchok, Mi shelo kidesh be'erev Shabbos, mahu, she'ikadesh v'hoyle kol hayom kuloi. One who did not make kiddush on erev Shabbos, can he go ahead and mekadesh throughout the entire day of Shabbos? Omar lei, he said to him, Mida'amrei b'nei Rav Chia, Mishalo hivdil b'motzei Shabbos, mavdil v'holei ha-Shabbos kuloi. In regards to Havdalah, somebody did not make Havdalah on Motzei Shabbos, he can continue making Havdalah through the rest of the week. So in Hochanam, Mishalo kiddush be'erev Shabbos, mekadesh v'holei kol hayom kuloi. One who did not make kiddush on Leil Shabbos, he can mekadesh the yom throughout the day of Shabbos. Gemara now asks the following question from a Brisa. Eisvei, Leile Shabbos, Velele Yom Tif, Yesh ben Kedusha ala Kois, Yesh ben Huskara be'Berkas HaMozon. It says over here in the Brisa, in regards to the night of Shabbos and night of Yom Tif, one is to make Kiddush on a Kois, and to mention the Shabbos in Birkas HaMozon. Shabbos v'Yom Tif, Ein Bohem Kedusha ala Kois, V'yeshman hazkara b'birkas hamazon. In regards to the day of Shabbos and Yontif, there you do not make kiddush on the kois, but you do mention them Shabbos and Yontif in the birkas hamazon. The Gemara now asks on this from this brisa, Mishaloi kiddush ba'erev Shabbos mekadesh v'hoyle kol hayom kulo. And if you're going to say that indeed one who did not make kiddush on Friday night, he can continue to make kiddush throughout the day of Shabbos, then Shabbos v'yontiv nami mishkachas ludi yesh ben kiddusha ala kiddus ala kois. Then also on Shabbos it should stay in the brisa that there is kiddush on the kois. Yet the brisa states that there's only kiddush at night, but not kiddush on the kois during the day. Because if a person did not make kiddush at night, then you can make kiddush during the day. So we see from this brisa that indeed it's not like you're saying you cannot make kiddush during the day if you didn't make kiddush at night. The Gemara says, no, that's not the case. Omar lei, you're not learning the Brisa as a correct kasha on this. Why? Because the Eloi Kitoni. The Brisa is not talking about a specific instance. If a person did not make Kiddush at night, then he cannot make Kiddush during the day. The Brisa is merely saying that the main Kiddush that is made, Kiddush is to be made lechatchila at night. But of course, if there's an onus that took place at night, or whatever, that person did not make Kiddush at night, certainly he can be able to go ahead and make Kiddush during the day.